Have action thrillers become too soft, too polished, too afraid to leave bruises? Some movies do not build tension slowly. They kick the door open, grab you by the collar, and refuse to let your pulse settle. These 15 films are not just entertaining. They feel dangerous, reckless, and alive. And the closer we get to number 1, the more it becomes clear. Pure adrenaline has a price. Number 15. Shoot 'em Up, 2007. This is the kind of movie that does not enter quietly. It kicks the door open with a gunfight, a newborn baby, and a hero who looks permanently annoyed by danger. Shoot 'em Up is pure chaos by design. A wild action thriller where logic takes a back seat and momentum grabs the wheel. Clive Owen plays Mr. Smith, a mysterious loner who accidentally becomes the protector of a baby after a woman is attacked in the middle of a shootout. From there, the movie turns into one long chase, with assassins, secret conspiracies, and Paul Giamatti giving one of his most unhinged villain performances as Hertz. Monica Bellucci adds emotional weight to the madness, but the real attraction is the film's outrageous confidence. Director Michael Davis stages action like a live-action cartoon with bullets, using stunts, dark humor, and impossible timing to keep the viewer locked in. It is not trying to be realistic, it is trying to be breathless. And that is exactly why it belongs here, because every scene feels like the movie is daring you to blink. Number 14. Sisu, 2022. Some action heroes shout threats. This one barely speaks, and somehow, that makes him even more terrifying. Sisu is a stripped-down survival thriller built around one brutal idea: never take gold from a man who has already survived everything. Set during the final days of World War II, the film follows Atami Korpi, a quiet prospector and former soldier who discovers gold in the wilderness, only to cross paths with a ruthless enemy patrol. What begins as a robbery quickly turns into a nightmare for the men who underestimate him. Jorma Tamilan gives the character a mythic presence, less like a normal hero and more like a force of nature moving through smoke, mud, and fire. Director Jalmari Helander keeps the story lean, almost like a violent fable, where every chapter raises the stakes and every escape feels more impossible than the last. The genius of Sisu is its simplicity. No wasted speeches. No complicated plot maze, just one man, one mission, and a growing sense that survival itself has become revenge. By the end, adrenaline is not just the energy of the film, it is the whole engine. Number 13. Upgrade, 2018. The scariest weapon in this movie is not a gun, a knife, or a killer. It is a voice inside a broken man's body. Upgrade begins like a sleek revenge thriller, but quickly mutates into something sharper, stranger, and far more dangerous. Logan Marshall Green plays Gray Trace, a mechanic whose life is destroyed after a violent attack leaves him paralyzed and his wife dead. Then comes STEM, an experimental computer implant that gives him movement again, but not just movement. It gives him speed, precision, and a terrifying new kind of control. Director Lee Winnell turns every fight scene into a shock to the nervous system. The camera moves with Gray's body as if it has been hijacked, snapping, twisting, and striking with machine-like accuracy, while Gray himself looks horrified by what he is doing. That contrast is what makes the movie so addictive. It is not just about revenge. It is about losing ownership of your own body while chasing justice. The action is brutal, clean, and inventive. But beneath the violence is a chilling question. Who is really making the decisions? By the time the truth starts closing in, Upgrade is no longer just adrenaline. It is paranoia moving at full speed. Number 12. Hardcore Henry, 2015. This movie does not ask you to watch the action. It straps the camera to your face and throws you directly into the explosion. Hardcore Henry is one of the most aggressive action experiments of modern cinema, shot almost entirely from a first-person perspective, making the viewer feel trapped inside the body of the hero. The story follows Henry, a man brought back from near death with cybernetic enhancements, only to wake up with no memory, no voice, and no time to breathe. Within minutes, he is running, falling, climbing, shooting, crashing, and surviving one absurdly dangerous situation after another. The film plays like a video game turned into a live-action panic attack, but what makes it memorable is how fully it commits to the gimmick. Director Ilya Naishuller does not slow down to explain every detail. He keeps the movie moving like a broken elevator dropping floor by floor. Sharlto Copley steals scenes through multiple strange versions of Jimmy, adding humor and mystery to the chaos. Some viewers found the style overwhelming, and that is exactly why it belongs on this list. Hardcore Henry is not smooth, elegant action. It is rough, dizzy, reckless, and loud, the cinematic equivalent of sprinting through danger with no idea what is waiting around the next corner. Number 11. The Night Comes for Us, 2018. Some action movies hit hard. This one feels like every wall, table, hallway, and human body has been turned into a weapon. The Night Comes for Us is a brutal Indonesian action thriller that wastes almost no time before throwing the viewer into a criminal underworld where betrayal is answered with absolute force. Joe Taslim plays Ito, a gangland enforcer who turns against his own organization after choosing to protect a young girl. That one decision triggers a storm of revenge, and from there, the movie becomes a relentless survival march through assassins, old loyalties, and bone-cracking consequences. Iko Uwais, already famous to action fans, brings terrifying intensity as Aryan, a friend-turned-enemy whose final confrontation with Ito carries emotional weight beneath the violence. Director Timo Tjahjanto stages action with savage momentum, but the fights are not empty noise. They feel desperate, messy, and exhausting, as if every character is paying physically for every second they stay alive. The movie's power comes from escalation. Just when one sequence seems impossible to top, another one arrives with even more pressure. It is stylish but never clean. It is choreographed but never polite. The Night Comes for Us runs on adrenaline because survival here is not heroic. It is painful, costly, and almost impossible. Number 10. Extraction, 2020. The mission sounds simple. Get the boy out. The nightmare begins when an entire city seems determined to stop him. Extraction turns a rescue operation into a muscular, breathless action thriller, built around movement, impact, and survival under fire. Chris Hemsworth plays Tyler Rake, a black market mercenary hired to save the kidnapped son of an imprisoned crime lord. But once the mission begins, every street, rooftop, bridge, and apartment block becomes part of the battlefield. What separates the film from routine shootout cinema is its physical intensity. Director Sam Hargrave, a veteran stunt coordinator, understands that action feels stronger when the audience can sense bodies hitting the ground, cars scraping through alleys, and bullets turning open spaces into traps. The famous extended chase sequence gives the movie its pulse, moving from vehicles to stairwells to hand-to-hand fights without letting the tension collapse. Hemsworth brings more than muscle to Tyler Rake. He gives him a haunted silence, suggesting a man who may be better at surviving danger than surviving his own grief. That emotional undertow keeps the chaos from feeling empty. Extraction is not complicated, but it is brutally effective. It promises one desperate mission and then keeps tightening the grip until every escape feels temporary. Number 9. Dread, 2012. One locked tower, one merciless judge, and 200 floors of criminals who picked the wrong day to fight back. Dread is action thriller minimalism done with maximum force. The setup is beautifully direct. Judge Dredd and rookie Judge Anderson enter Peachtree's, a massive apartment block controlled by the ruthless drug lord Mama. When the building is sealed, the mission becomes survival. No backup, no escape, no soft landing. With Carl Urban plays Dredd with stone-faced precision, never removing the helmet, never begging for sympathy, and never turning the character into a joke. Olivia Thirlby gives the film its human tension as Anderson, whose psychic ability and moral uncertainty make her more than just a trainee. Lena Headey's Mama is chilling because she does not need theatrical speeches. Her control over the building is enough. Director Pete Travis keeps the action tight and brutal, using the vertical setting like a pressure cooker. Every corridor feels dangerous. Every elevator ride could become a trap. The slow-motion drug sequences add a strange visual beauty, but the movie never forgets its hard edge. Dread works because it understands momentum. It does not overcomplicate the world or drown the viewer in backstory. It locks the doors, raises the body count, and lets the tension climb floor by floor. Number 8. Con Air, 1997. A prison plane full of dangerous criminals should never feel this entertaining. But that is exactly why this movie became pure adrenaline candy. Con Air takes one outrageous idea and pushes it into full blockbuster madness. Former Army Ranger Cameron Poe is finally going home after serving time for manslaughter, but his flight turns into a nightmare when some of the most violent prisoners in America hijack the transport plane. Nicolas Cage plays Poe with that strange mix of sincerity, toughness, and quiet sadness that makes the character feel larger than life. Around him, the movie stacks the deck with unforgettable personalities. John Malkovich as the cold mastermind Cyrus the Virus, Ving Rhames as Diamond Dog, and Steve Buscemi as Garland Green, whose calm presence somehow feels more disturbing than all the shouting. Director Simon West builds the film like a metal machine flying through chaos. Explosions, desert landings, mid-air fights, betrayals, and that ridiculous, unforgettable Las Vegas finale. The plot is not subtle, but subtlety is not the point. The fun is watching a movie that understands exactly how wild it is and refuses to apologize. Every few minutes, the danger gets louder, the plane gets closer to disaster, and Poe has to survive not just to save himself, but to reach the daughter he has never properly known. That emotional thread gives the madness just enough heart. Con Air is sweaty, loud, excessive, and completely committed. It runs on engines, bad decisions, and pure 90s action confidence. Number 7. Crank, 2006. Most heroes run from death. Chev Chelios has to run toward chaos just to stay alive. Crank is one of the most aggressively energized action thrillers ever made. Built around a premise so absurd it becomes genius. A hitman wakes up poisoned, and the only way to slow the poison is to keep his adrenaline pumping. That means no rest, no calm, no safe choices. Only violence, speed, panic, and public mayhem. Jason Statham plays Chev like a human weapon running out of battery, charging himself through fights, car chases, arguments, danger, and increasingly outrageous situations. Directors Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor shoot the movie like a cracked-out video game, throwing the camera into the action with wild angles, fast edits, and a restless visual style that matches Chev's collapsing body. The story barely pauses because the character cannot pause. Every quiet moment becomes a threat. Every conversation feels like a countdown. What makes Crank memorable is not realism, but momentum. It turns survival into a full-body emergency, forcing the viewer to experience the pressure of a man who will literally die if the movie slows down. There is humor here, but it is sharp, reckless, and dangerous. There is action here, but it feels more like a medical condition than a mission. By the time Chev is tearing through the city, fighting enemies, chasing answers, and refusing to drop, the film has turned adrenaline into a plot device, a visual style, and a personality. It does not just belong on this list, it practically defines it. Number 6. The Bourne Ultimatum, 2007. This is not a spy movie that walks through clues. It sprints through them like every secret has a gun pointed at its back. The Bourne Ultimatum takes Jason Bourne's search for identity and turns it into a global pressure cooker, moving from crowded streets to government offices to rooftops and train stations with terrifying speed. Matt Damon plays Bourne with controlled intensity, not as a flashy action hero, but as a man trained so deeply for survival that danger has become instinct. He does not waste movement. He does not waste words. He enters a room, reads the exits, turns ordinary objects into weapons, and disappears before anyone fully understands what happened. Director Paul Greengrass gives the film its nerve-shredding rhythm, using handheld urgency and constant pursuit to make the audience feel hunted alongside Bourne. The Waterloo Station sequence is a masterclass in tension, turning a public place into a silent battlefield of surveillance, coded instructions, and one wrong step away from death. Later, the Tangier chase pushes the physical action into brutal territory, with Bourne leaping across rooftops before a close-quarters fight that feels raw, desperate, and almost exhausting to watch. But beneath the action is a deeper engine, a man trying to uncover who turned him into a weapon. That emotional question gives every chase more weight. The Bourne Ultimatum works because the adrenaline is not empty spectacle. It is memory, guilt, fear, and survival colliding at full speed. Every scene feels like Bourne is not just escaping enemies, he is outrunning the truth. Number 5. John Wick, Chapter 4, 2023. By the time this movie reaches its final staircase, action cinema feels less like entertainment and more like punishment turned into art. John Wick Chapter 4 takes the legend of the unstoppable assassin and expands it into a massive, stylish, beautifully violent gauntlet. Keanu Reeves returns as John Wick, a man who has survived betrayal, exile, and entire armies of killers, but now faces a world where every doorway can hide a contract and every ally comes with a cost. What makes this chapter so powerful is scale. The film does not simply repeat the earlier formula. It turns Wick's fight for freedom into an international death march through Osaka, Berlin, Paris, and the shadowy rules of the High Table. Director Chad Stahelski stages action with obsessive clarity, letting the viewer see the choreography, the falls, the reloads, the exhaustion, and the precision behind every movement. The Osaka Continental sequence brings sword fights, gun battles, and neon-lit danger. The overhead shootout feels like watching a video game nightmare from above, but with brutal physical weight. And then there is the Arc de Triomphe sequence, where traffic becomes part of the battlefield, and survival depends on timing, luck, and stubborn refusal to die. Donnie Yen adds elegance and emotion as Kane, a blind assassin with his own burden, giving the movie more than just bodies and bullets. John Wick, Chapter 4, is pure adrenaline because it understands rhythm. It knows when to strike, when to breathe, and when to throw its hero into one more impossible fight. Number 4, Mission Impossible, Fallout, 2018. Some movies fake danger with editing. This one makes you feel like the star might actually break before the mission ends. Mission Impossible, Fallout, is blockbuster action pushed to near-insane physical commitment, with Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt racing against time, betrayal, and nuclear catastrophe. The plot begins with a failed mission involving stolen plutonium, but the real thrill comes from watching every choice spiral into a bigger, more dangerous problem. Christopher McQuarrie directs the film with clean, muscular tension, building set pieces that do not feel randomly inserted. Each one tightens the story like another wire around Ethan's throat. The bathroom fight is bruising and beautifully staged, with Henry Cavill's August Walker adding brute force and suspicion to the team dynamic. The Paris motorcycle chase turns streets into a maze of risk, while the London rooftop pursuit became famous not just for its intensity, but because Cruise actually injured himself during the stunt, and the take remained part of the film. That real-world danger feeds the audience's reaction. You are not just watching a character run, you are watching a performer test the limits of control. Then comes the helicopter finale, where the movie climbs into pure panic, turning the sky into a battlefield, and the countdown into a physical sensation. Rebecca Ferguson, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and the rest of the ensemble give the chaos emotional stakes, especially when Ethan's loyalty to one life threatens millions. Fallout runs on adrenaline because its action is not decoration. It is character, consequence, and impossible choices moving at full speed. Number 3. The Raid, 2011. There is no escape route in this movie, only doors that open into more pain. The Raid is one of the cleanest, cruelest, and most relentless action thriller concepts ever put on screen. A police team enters a high-rise building controlled by a violent crime lord, only to become trapped inside with every criminal in the place hunting them down. That simple setup gives the film its terrifying power. No globe-trotting plot, no complicated conspiracy, just one building, one mission, and a shrinking chance of survival. Iko Uwais stars as Rama, a rookie officer whose courage is tested floor by floor, hallway by hallway, fight by fight. Director Gareth Evans turns the tower into a vertical nightmare, using tight spaces to create pressure that never lets the viewer relax. The early gun battles are intense, but the movie becomes legendary when the ammunition starts disappearing and bodies become the weapons. The Sillet fight choreography is fast, brutal, and astonishingly precise, yet it never feels weightless. Every hit lands, every fall hurts, every pause feels like someone is gathering enough strength to continue suffering. The famous hallway and machete sequences show how the film uses space like a trap, forcing characters into close combat, where survival depends on reflexes and endurance. What makes The Raid so gripping is its purity. It strips action down to movement, fear, impact, and breath. By the final battles, the viewer feels almost as exhausted as the characters. This is not action as spectacle. This is action as survival under siege. Number 2. Speed, 1994. A bus that cannot slow down should be a ridiculous idea, but this movie turns it into one of the greatest tension machines in action history. Speed works because its premise is brutally simple and instantly stressful. A city bus is wired to explode if it drops below 50 miles per hour. From that moment, ordinary Los Angeles traffic becomes a deadly obstacle course, and every red light, sharp turn, gap in the freeway, and panicked passenger becomes part of the suspense. Keanu Reeves plays Jack Traven with youthful intensity, all instinct and courage, while Sandra Bullock's Annie gives the film warmth, humor, and a grounded human center as she is forced behind the wheel. Dennis Hopper's villain, Howard Payne, keeps the pressure alive from a distance, turning phone calls into threats and making the bus feel watched at every second. Director Jan de Bont, who had worked as a cinematographer on major action films, understands how to make movement feel clear and dangerous. The elevator opening sets the tone, but the bus section is the heart of the movie, a perfect example of how limited space can create unlimited tension. What makes Speed so rewatchable is how efficiently it escalates. The movie keeps inventing new problems without losing the main one. Passengers panic, police scramble, the road runs out, the bomb keeps waiting, and somehow, through all that pressure, the film still finds romance and personality. Speed is pure adrenaline because it turns one rule into a full cinematic heartbeat. Slow down, and everything ends. Number 1. Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015. This movie does not feel edited together. It feels discovered in the middle of a dust storm, already screaming toward destruction. Mad Max, Fury Road is the ultimate adrenaline film because it turns almost its entire story into motion. The plot is mythic in its simplicity. Imperator Furiosa betrays a tyrant, escapes across the wasteland with a group of women seeking freedom, and Max is dragged into the chase until survival becomes a shared mission. But what George Miller does with that setup is extraordinary. Instead of slowing the movie down with heavy explanation, he builds a world through engines, scars, masks, rituals, weapons, and movement. Tom Hardy's Max is quiet, haunted, and animal-like, while Charlize Theron's Furiosa becomes the emotional engine of the film, a warrior carrying guilt, hope, and rage across the desert. The action is massive, but it is never empty. War rigs thunder across sand. Polecats swing over speeding vehicles. Motorbikes fly over cliffs. A flame-throwing guitar turns battle into madness. Yet beneath the spectacle is a clean, emotional line. People trying to escape ownership and reclaim their lives. That is why the chaos matters. The practical stunt work gives every collision and explosion a physical force that digital noise often lacks. The camera remains clear even when the world is falling apart, so the viewer feels the danger without losing the geography of the chase. Fury Road earns the number 1 spot because it does not simply contain adrenaline. It is structured like adrenaline. It surges, crashes, recovers, and surges again until the final image feels like survival itself. And that is the real test of an adrenaline movie. Not how many explosions it has, but how long it keeps your nerves locked in its grip. These 15 films do not politely entertain you. They chase you, shake you, and leave your pulse racing after the credits. Now tell me, which one made you feel the most alive? 3.